Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Already in March, excess rainfall is almost 25% more than the long-term average. And now the Met Department is predicting heavy rain with high-velocity winds both on the 30th and the 31st of this month. As a result, we ask, what does this rain mean for India's critical Rabi harvest? And bearing in mind that this could be the second year in succession that unseasonal weather has threatened the Rabi crop, what are the steps the government should propose and take in mitigation? Those are the key issues I shall raise today with one of India's foremost agriculture experts, a distinguished professor at ICRIER, Professor Ashok Gulati. Professor Gulati, as I said in the introduction, already this month, rain has exceeded the long-term average by nearly 25%. And now the Met Department is forecasting another heavy spell of rain with high-velocity winds on the 30th and 31st. So before we come to details, let me ask you a general question. What impact will this heavy rain have on the Rabi wheat crop, which in most areas is more or less ready for harvesting?
That's right. This unseasonal rains are definitely going to impact two parts of wheat. One is the quality of wheat, and the other is the quantity of wheat production. That's very clear. It will be somewhat differential in different parts of the country, where the heavy rains are accompanied by sort of very gusty winds, almost a tornado, which flattens the crop. There the damage is likely to be a little more than the other places. And then we have to see immediately after the rains whether a good sunshine for the next 2-3 days come, so that the water that is locked there in the fields can easily evaporate, and then we can retrieve whatever best we can.
I'll take up many of the points you've made, but let's first start with Punjab, because already there are reports in the newspapers like the Hindustan Times which suggest that damage in Punjab is in over 15 lakh acres, which is said to be more than 40% of the net sown area. According to Gurvinder Singh, the director of Punjab's agricultural department, he's told the Hindustan Times that there could be around a 15% yield loss. From your reports and from your assessment, do you think that is about right?
Well, I think what I understand is government of Punjab has already asked for a proper assessment called the Gurdwari system, and the Patwaris have to give the report. Yes, the rains have been on a significant area, almost what you are saying, 1.5 million hectares out of about 3.4 million hectares. So the rains have been there. How much yield loss will be there on this particular area, whether it is 10%, 15%, or it is a quality loss, that has yet to be assessed. So it will be a little premature on my part to say 15% is the right number or wrong.
I understand that completely. But if it turns out to be 15%, which is what Gurvinder Singh, the director of the Punjab Agricultural Department, is predicting, how significant is a 15% yield loss?
You have to look at the all India picture. India was expecting about 112 million tons of wheat production. UP is the biggest player. About 35 million tons of wheat is being produced there. In Punjab, it's about 17, 18 million tons of wheat that is being produced, and almost 18 million tons in Madhya Pradesh. So Punjab actually today stands number 3 in the production list from the top. Now, if within Punjab 40% area is impacted, and that's where the yield loss of, let's say, what you are saying, 15% is correct, then 15% on 40% of the area, that will give you roughly 6% loss overall in Punjab. And Punjab is only a third player at an all India level. So that you can see overall in the country, it may be 2% loss, 1% loss, 5% loss. I personally talked to the ministry concerned at the center, and they are still assessing it, and they are waiting for these rains of 30th and 31st of March also to see how it unfolds. And I think only next week there will be some policy action on that front.
I think you've put it very well. Let me just repeat it for the audience. Even if the worst as predicted by Mr. Gurvinder Singh happens, he's talking of a 15% yield loss in 40% of the sown area, which, as you said, amounts to 6% overall of Punjab's production. And in national terms, that is actually as little as 2% of India's overall national wheat output. And 2% loss is not a dramatic or particularly worrying loss. Have I summed that up correctly?
More or less. It could be even 1 to 3% overall. We don't know. We have to wait for another 5-6 days before the ministry comes up with its proper assessment, because they are getting information right now as we talk from different states.
Let's now come to some of the points you made in that first answer. Your real concern, if I understand correctly, about heavy rain at this time is what's called lodging, or the bending over of the standing wheat crop because of high velocity winds. The question is, can lodging be reversed if the heavy rain is followed by 3 or 4 days of strong sunshine, or is lodging, once it happens, irreversible?
Well, the lodging, there are different ways how to tackle with that. If there is water logged in that area, you can drain out the water. Or if there is a good sunshine, as you said, 2-3 days, and then automatically the water evaporates, then you can put and slightly get the crop standing again with a little effort to put, rassi se baan ke, dhage se baan ke, things like that can be done. So the main thing is whether the grain formation had been complete or not. Because what this lodging impacts is not the grain is lost. It's not a total damage, remember this. So the quality can be going a little bit down. There could be a bit of shriveling, and there could be a bit of luster loss, as we say. So the quality will be impacted a bit more than perhaps than the quantity. We have to distinguish between the two.
In fact, Professor Gulati, this ties up what you're saying just now with the point you made when I spoke to you to set up this interview. At that time, you said to me, you were more worried about loss of quality in the crop because of discoloration rather than loss of quantity. Now, I presume if there is loss of quality, the price earned by the farmer will be affected because the quality of what he's producing has gone down. In the case of Punjab, how much of a problem is loss of quality? Because in Punjab, most of the wheat is sold to the government through the procurement process. So in the case of the Punjabi farmer, will loss of quality lead to reduction in the price he earns, or will the government, because it's the major procurer, still pay the price?
My feeling is the government will relax the quality specifications, and unless it is terribly damaged, government will accommodate. I think Punjab government has already written to FCI and the central government, and my feeling at this stage is the FCI would accommodate, of course, depending upon what the food ministry says, to be more liberal in assessing the quality aspect this time. That has been done in the past also a number of times. In fact, a year before, in Madhya Pradesh, this thing had happened in 2 districts and the quality specifications were relaxed. So if we have to ensure good procurement, the target is 34 million tons, then I think we will have to relax quality a bit, at least in Punjab or some of the areas where the damage has been a bit more than others.
Let's move beyond Punjab. About Punjab, because of Gurvinder Singh and the report in the Hindustan Times, we have at least an idea of the extent of the potential damage. But from your reports, what do you believe is the situation in other major wheat production states like Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, and of course Uttar Pradesh, which is the biggest producer of wheat? They all, I believe, have suffered the same unseasonal heavy rain. But what do reports you're receiving suggest the damage to the crop in those states is likely to be?
I personally went to the fields in Madhya Pradesh. Yesterday, I talked to people in Uttar Pradesh. But remember that these types of visits or individual talking are very location-specific and somewhat micro-assessments compared to what the government is trying to get from different districts and different blocks. So that assessment is still pending. But in other states, the damage is not as much as in Punjab, that is for sure. And that's why you're not hearing. I was more worried about UP because UP is number 1. It produces more than double of what Punjab produces. And people don't know that today Madhya Pradesh is producing as much as Punjab, almost 1 million tons more. So these 2 states are very critical for the national food security. Punjab is critical for the procurement because Punjab contributes maximum to the procurement, that is the central food. And that's where we have the flexibility of FCI. Punjab's wheat goes very little to the private sector, almost 80%, 90% it is to be given to of the marketed surplus, it is given to the
But the important
FCI.
thing you're saying is that your own personal assessment done through telephone calls, visits to Madhya Pradesh suggests that in major wheat production states like Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, and of course UP in particular, the damage is not as much as Punjab. The hit,
much less,
has been the greatest in Punjab, not elsewhere.
Yeah, that's right. You're right on that.
Now, whilst a lot of the focus is on wheat, it's by no means the only crop that's likely to be affected by unseasonal rain. There's mustard, chili, coriander, cumin, chick-pea, and in other parts of India, newspaper reports suggest that there could also be an adverse effect on mangoes, grapes, and potatoes. Do you have any sense of how other crops other than wheat, are damaged and affected?
Yes, but remember that as far as mustard is concerned, that matures before, wheat. And much of that had been harvested. So it's a little part that is damaged, yes. Mango, in fact, in Maharashtra, I was right there in Maharashtra, and mango crop has been damaged because of heavy rains. That was about 15 days back. So there is, every year, remember, India is too huge, and every year weather will bring, some heavy rain or sometimes heat, sometimes heavy winds. There is some damage or the other almost every year. So it's not very exceptional to see a very normal year. Even the monsoon can be very uneven. Even last year, monsoon were very uneven. But when you look at the aggregate production in the country, that has not been impacted the Kharif crop. So I'm not too worried that, oh, this is a big failure of the Rabi season and Rabi crop, and therefore there are alarm bells to be pressed. No, and that's not.
But from your answer, would I be right in understanding that significant damage has not been done to crops like chili, coriander, cumin, chickpea? You said there is a little damage to mustard, but mustard is harvested before wheat, and there is damage, as you said, to mango in Maharashtra, but the others have not suffered
Yes.
serious damage. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, you have to remember one thing, that the farmer who has suffered on his field, for him it's a total disaster, right? Because it's a very small plot. But when you consider the all India picture and you look at the national food security and whether the national food prices will go out of control, or what's happening in some of the neighboring countries, will we come to that type of a situation? So from the national point of view, vis-a-vis an individual farmer point of view, I think we have to keep the analysis a little different and find out what are the solutions to this, not the best monsoon, but not the worst also.
I'll come to solutions in a moment's time, but let me first ask you, there is, of course, the Fasal Bima Yojana insurance scheme. How comprehensive is it, and will it be effective in making up the loss farmers suffer?
This is very interesting point, because a few years back, when the Prime Minister himself took up this to expand that at an all India level, and the center offered 45% subsidy on the premium. 45% was to be given by the states, and only 10% had to be given by the farmers. And that is the right policy instrument to take care of heat waves or these types of hailstorms, unseasonal rains that damage. But the problem where it comes is, so far it has not been a grand success. It has made some progress, and some of the states, and I'm sorry to say Punjab was in the forefront of opposing that, and they thought this scheme is primarily for the drought-prone states. And we are fully irrigated, so even in a drought, we are perfectly safe. Why should we pay a premium on this when we are not likely to be impacted? So Punjab had opposed, and my information is subject to checking. Only yesterday, someone from Punjab told me they opted out of the scheme. And now they are realizing what a mistake you are doing. This is like, your car may be running perfectly fine. You may be a very good driver, and therefore you say, why should I insure my car and keep giving that premium? But the day it hits, that's when you realize that you need to do this insurance.
But you're also saying,
this is the right. Yeah.
But if I understand correctly, you're also saying, Professor Gulati, that the Fasal Bima Yojana insurance scheme is the best measure from the government's point of view of mitigating adverse weather circumstances. They happened this year with excessive rain. They happened last year when the temperature became far too hot. You think that the best way of mitigating these unforeseen weather predicaments is the Fasal Bima Yojana scheme?
Perfectly right, that for the farmer's point of view, to protect his income losses, this is the best way to proceed forward. There are some little weaknesses here and there, because you need to apply much better technology to assess the crop damage. You cannot just rely on the Patwari system. That's not a very foolproof system, and if I may use the word, it's a little corrupt system. So you need to use a little bit of technology, the space technologies, low Earth orbits, and all-weather stations, which can continuously give you information every 15 minutes, what is happening to the crop. You can today actually see and measure every 15 minutes what is happening to each crop on each field. So that type of technology. You have to invest once for all, and then you can supplement that with the Patwari system and all that. The reason I'm saying this is critical is because insurance scheme, survival of that and success of that depends upon what the reinsurers think about us. when the scale increases, the premiums should come down. I talk to the biggest reinsurers. They say your system is ridden with all sorts of mischievous things, and therefore we are not very comfortable with that. If it is a transparent, technology-driven system, then the premiums can come down. China was like us, and they started off, and now 100 million hectares are insured. US is number one, literally, in crop insurance. India needs to look at those models, how they have succeeded, how they have applied those technologies, and it can be done in a smallholder economy.
So once again, what you're saying is very important, and I'll just quickly sum it up for the audience. The Fasal Bima Yojana insurance scheme is the right way of protecting farmers, regardless of what the crop they grow may be, against adverse, unforeseen, unpredictable weather conditions. But you cannot base it on the Patwari system alone. You need to involve modern technology, because only when modern technology gives you an accurate mapping of the crop under growth will reinsurers be willing to step in and support the scheme. And therefore, Fasal Bima Yojana is the start of the right response, but it needs to be supported by improved modern technology. Have you got that right?
You have done it better than I could say. Only thing is that these extreme events are uneven weather events. The frequency and intensity of these is likely to increase. So it's better we get our Fasal Bima Yojana well equipped.
Absolutely. With climate change, the looming danger on the horizon, time is not on our side. We have to act quickly. Two quick questions before I let you go, Professor Gulati. If, and there's a big if there, if wheat production this year is below the anticipated target level, will there be an impact on inflation?
Let's look at two parts. 1 to 800 million people, we are giving literally free wheat and rice, 5 kg per month per person, right, under the food security. So they are in a way reasonably protected, whether the prices in the non-PDS system go up or down. So they are reasonably protected. Right now, February inflation of wheat was very high. But after that, the unloading of excess stocks with FCI has brought down the wholesale prices, and you will see March inflation and April inflation dramatically coming down for wheat. Now, in the next 3 months, I don't see any problem, because the crop is going to come, even if it's not 112, it is 110, or even if it is 107, 8, 9, I don't know what the government assessment will be. But even let's say, 3 to 5 million tons, the crop is down, right? In the initial months, there is no problem at all, because you have enough stocks and in the system than the demand of those 3-4 months. But as October, November starts coming, that's when the demand peaks up, and that's when the pressures start. So you have right now a window for the next 2 months, 3 months. You can import. Last year, 22-23, you had put export bans, and despite export bans, you have exported literally 5.1 million tons of wheat and wheat flour, despite export bans. So if you have to import this time 3 million tons, what's the harm? Trade policy are two sides of the same coin. Import and export should go in. And good luck to you that the international prices, which had touched almost $500 a ton in April 2022, are today at 260, even less than that. 23rd of March, I was looking at, it's below $260 a ton. So if you plan your things well, you have an import duty on wheat at 40%. If you bring that down to, say, 10%, and people will make their own assessments when to import and how much to import, you can easily, if the government wants to import and augmented buffer stocks, there are two ways, whether they want to import at 3 million tons with a special deal with Russia or Ukraine, That's where cheap grain can be imported, as they are importing crude oil. The other is incentivize the farmers, give them 100 rupees or 150 rupees as a bonus, so that they are encouraged to give it more to the government than outside. So government
Absolutely.
can stabilize the prices. Second thing, the rice, we have almost 3 times the buffer stocks compared to the buffer stock norm. So you can unload rice and keep the cereal prices low. And in the PDS system, you can substitute rice for wheat to the extent possible. So luckily, you still have mountains of grains of rice in the system.
So clearly, you're not worried about an adverse impact on inflation as a result of the wheat target being missed by 2 or 3 or 4 million tons, because as you said, there is no problem for the next 3-4 months whatsoever. And after that, as we approach October, the government can either import because prices are low and you can import quite cheaply from the Ukraine or Russia, or you can substitute by unloading more of rice. We have massive quantities of rice. My last question. If wheat production is lower than the expected, anticipated level, will there be an adverse impact on the government's food stock levels? They were said to be very close to the minimum level last year. Could we be at that same point again this year? And secondly, could that have an adverse impact on the government's commitment to the public distribution system, which is what gives free grain to those 800 million people you mentioned?
Let me start by public distribution system. There will be no reduction or escape from that commitment. Government will give at least 5 kilograms per person per month free food, wheat or rice. Now, wheat, on 1st of April this year, the wheat stock with FCI is expected to be about 9.67 million tons compared to a buffer stock norm of 7.5, 7.6 million tons. So you are 2 million tons above the buffer stock norm, right? The procurement target is 34 million tons. In total, you need to procure in a year not more than 30 million tons. We had been going out of the way to procure because there was so much of surplus which got liquidated during the COVID period by distributing more free food. So 30 million tons, if you can procure, you are perfectly safe and you can honor all your commitments of wheat or rice. If you are not able to procure even 30 million tons, then there is a question that you have asked, will the government be able to honor its commitments of wheat in PDS? That's where the substitution of rice can be attempted. That's where if they have to import, they can do that. That's where if they have to augment and make sure that the procurement is not below 30%, 30 million tons, then they can offer even a bonus to the farmers of 100, 200 rupees, 150 rupees per quintal.
That's very clear. Even if the worst happens, which means procurement is below 30 million tons, which is the bare minimum you need, there are multiple ways in which the government can tackle the situation. You can import prices are cheap. You can make up by distributing more rice, or you can pay that additional 100, 150 rupee bonus to farmers to incentivize them. In other words, even if procurement falls below the minimum of 30 million tons, it is not going to be a serious problem. Is that right?
Perfect. You can sum up better than I can say.
Professor Gulati, you are a flatterer, but I thank you for your kindness. Thank you very much for this interview. And in particular, thank you for explaining things so simply and clearly and reassuring the audience that the situation may be problematic at the moment, but it is not by any means a serious issue of concern as things stand today. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you for having me, Karan, as always. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.